In a significant move signaling a potential shift in China's economic strategy, President Xi Jinping convened a rare meeting with prominent business leaders on February 17, 2025, including Alibaba founder Jack Ma. This gathering marks a notable pivot from the Chinese government's previous stance on private enterprises, particularly in the technology sector, which has faced increased scrutiny and regulation in recent years. The meeting held at the Great Hall of the People in Beijing comes at a time when China's economy is grappling with multiple challenges, including a housing crisis, stagnant consumption, and soaring youth unemployment. Xi's remarks during the symposium underscored his call for private companies to show their talent, as he emphasized the crucial role of private enterprises in bolstering economic growth and innovation. It is the right time for the majority of private business and entrepreneurs to show their talent, he stated, highlighting the broad prospects that lie ahead for the private sector. The presence of industry heavyweights such as Ren Zhengfei of Huawei, executives from BYD and CATL, and Liang Wenfeng, founder of the AI startup DeepSeek, reflected the government's intent to re-engage with the private sector. This was particularly significant for Jack Ma, who had largely retreated from the public eye following a government crackdown on his businesses after a controversial speech in 2020. The return of Ma to such a high-profile meeting signals a potential thaw in relations between the state and the private sector, which has been under pressure for years. Analysts interpret this gathering as a symbolic course correction, a recognition of the vital contribution that the private sector can make to China's economy, especially in the face of mounting pressures from the United States and other global competitors. Fred Hu, founder of Primavera Capital, commented on the significance of Ma's attendance, suggesting that it sends a clear message that successful private entrepreneurs will receive respect rather than penalties from the government. Despite the optimistic optics of the meeting, concerns linger over whether this newfound support for private enterprises will translate into substantive policy changes. Past government meetings have often promised support for private companies, only to be followed by increased regulations that stifled growth and innovation. Xi's recent assurances included a commitment to protect the legal rights and interests of private enterprises, yet experts warn that more decisive actions will be needed to stimulate investment and consumer confidence in the long run. The meeting also coincided with market reactions, with Hong Kong stocks showing initial gains before closing slightly lower. Notably, the absence of executives from major tech players like ByteDance and Baidu raised eyebrows among investors, fueling speculation about the government's favoritism towards certain companies. The mixed signals from the government and the market reflect a broader uncertainty about the future trajectory of China's economic policies and the private sector's role within it. As China navigates its economic challenges and the complexities of its geopolitical rivalry with the United States, the implications of Xi's outreach to business leaders will be closely monitored. The Chinese government appears to be recognizing the necessity of private sector innovation as it seeks to maintain competitiveness on the global stage. However, the true test will come in the form of actionable policies that can foster an environment where private enterprises thrive sustainably rather than merely during periods of economic distress. In conclusion, while Xi Jinping's meeting with business leaders like Jack Ma signals a potentially brighter future for China's private sector, it remains to be seen whether this will lead to the meaningful changes that the economy desperately needs. The coming months will be crucial as investors and entrepreneurs alike watch for signs of a genuine shift in policy that prioritizes innovation and growth in China's increasingly competitive technological landscape. In the intricate landscape of Chinese politics, one question looms larger than any other: who will succeed Xi Jinping? As the Chinese Communist Party (CCP) navigates through economic challenges and international pressures, speculation about Xi's political future intensifies. Recent events, including a high-profile meeting between Xi and prominent business leaders, offer insights into the current state of the Chinese leadership dynamic and the potential implications for the country's economic trajectory. On February 17, 2025, Xi Jinping convened a rare gathering with corporate titans, including Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba, marking a significant shift from the previous years when private entrepreneurs faced increasing scrutiny and regulation. This meeting, which took place amid a backdrop of economic uncertainty fueled by tariffs and a sluggish domestic market, was perceived as an attempt by Xi to reinforce ties with the private sector. The attendance of Ma, who had largely retreated from the public eye following a government crackdown on his business empire, symbolized a potential thaw in relations between the state and private enterprise. Xi's remarks during the meeting underscored the CCP's vision for the role of private companies in bolstering national interests. Private enterprises should have the ambition to serve the country, he stated, reflecting a dual expectation for economic growth and allegiance to the party. This call to action came as China grapples with a property crisis, declining consumer confidence, and the broader impacts of its trade rivalry with the United States. Investors responded cautiously to the meeting. While the Hang Seng Index saw initial gains, it ultimately closed slightly lower, indicating lingering skepticism about the sustainability of Xi's overtures to business leaders. The sentiment among analysts was mixed, with Fred Hu, founder of Primavera Capital, describing the meeting as a course correction. He emphasized the need for the government to rebuild trust with the private sector, which has suffered under policies perceived as punitive. The historical context of Xi's leadership reveals a complicated relationship between the state and private businesses. Since Xi's rise to power, there has been a marked shift towards prioritizing state-owned enterprises, with regulations that have stifled innovation in the private sector. The meeting with business leaders comes at a critical juncture, as the Chinese economy shows signs of fragility amidst a push for self-reliance in technology and industry. Despite the hopeful rhetoric, experts caution that meaningful change may not follow. Chen Jiwu, a finance professor at the University of Hong Kong, noted that the private sector's value to the state tends to fluctuate based on economic needs. Once the economy stabilizes, the private business owners would be thrown into the trash can once again, he asserted, highlighting a potential return to the status quo that has characterized Xi's tenure. In conclusion, as the question of Xi Jinping's successor looms, the recent engagement with business leaders may signal a moment of reflection for the CCP regarding its economic strategy. Whether this will translate into substantive policy changes remains to be seen. The interplay between political power, economic necessity, and the ambitions of private entrepreneurs will undoubtedly shape the future of China's leadership landscape, and the world will watch closely as these dynamics unfold. In an unprecedented gathering that signals a potential shift in China's approach to its tech industry, President Xi Jinping met with prominent business leaders, including Alibaba founder Jack Ma, on February 17, 2025. This meeting comes at a critical juncture for the world's second-largest economy, which faces an economic slump exacerbated by a housing crisis, stagnant consumption, and high youth unemployment. The symposium, held at Beijing's Great Hall of the People, marks a notable moment as it reflects Xi's efforts to encourage private sector innovation amidst increasing pressure from global competitors, particularly the United States. During the meeting, Xi urged attendees to show their talent, highlighting the importance of private enterprises in driving economic growth. His remarks, characterized by state media as important, emphasized the government's commitment to a stable economic policy and the need for private businesses to contribute positively to the economy. She asserted that the private sector holds broad prospects and great promise, and acknowledged that the Chinese government must support these enterprises to compete effectively on the global stage, especially against U.S. technological advancements. The presence of Jack Ma, who has largely remained out of the public eye since a controversial speech in 2020 that criticized Chinese regulators, was particularly noteworthy. Ma's previous criticisms had led to a crackdown on his businesses, including a halted IPO for Ant Group and significant fines for Alibaba for antitrust violations. Analysts view his participation in this meeting as a sign of the government's willingness to mend relations with the tech industry, which has faced intense scrutiny and regulation in recent years. It's a tacit acknowledgement that the Chinese government needs private sector firms for its tech rivalry with the U.S., commented Christopher Better, Deputy China Research Director at Gavkal Dragonomics. The meeting also included other notable figures from the tech sector such as Pony Ma from Tencent and executives from electric vehicle manufacturer BYD and battery maker CATL. The gathering was closely monitored by investors, particularly given the absence of leaders from major firms like ByteDance and Baidu, which raised concerns about their standing with the government. Xi's assurances during the meeting are seen as crucial in light of the ongoing economic downturn, which has prompted the government to reconsider its previously stringent policies on private enterprises. His statement that the government would sincerely protect the legal rights of private businesses and entrepreneurs while maintaining regulatory oversight reflects a delicate balancing act that the Communist Party must navigate as it seeks to stimulate growth without relinquishing control. As the Chinese economy grapples with various challenges including a weakened real estate market and rising unemployment, the implications of this meeting could reverberate across the tech sector and beyond. The government's renewed focus on supporting private businesses may foster an environment conducive to innovation and investment, crucial for revitalizing China's economic landscape. Looking ahead, the effectiveness of these reassurances and the government's commitment to fostering a more favorable business climate will be closely scrutinized. As China continues to navigate its economic challenges and the competitive pressures from abroad, the balance between regulation and support for the private sector will be a defining factor in its future growth trajectory. The outcome of this meeting may well influence the direction of China's tech industry and its ability to compete in the global market in the years to come. Amid rising tensions in the Indo-Pacific and ongoing global geopolitical shifts, a recent series of reports have cast doubt on the combat readiness of China's military, the People's Liberation Army (PLA). Despite significant advancements in military technology, including the world's largest navy and enhanced missile capabilities, experts warned that the PLA's focus appears to be more on maintaining the Chinese Communist Party CCP's grip on power rather than preparing for potential high-intensity conflicts. This revelation challenges the prevailing notion that China's military modernization poses an imminent threat to the United States and its allies. A comprehensive report from the RAND Corporation highlights a critical disconnect between China's military advancements and its operational effectiveness. While the PLA has made strides in developing sophisticated weaponry, analysts argue that the military's primary objective is to bolster the CCP's credibility and internal stability rather than to engage in large-scale warfare. The PLA remains fundamentally focused on upholding CCP rule rather than preparing for war, the report contends. This emphasis on political loyalty over battlefield competence raises questions about the military's capability to execute complex joint operations, a necessity for modern warfare. The report's findings come at a time when US-China tensions are escalating, particularly regarding Taiwan. Military analysts had previously warned that China could achieve a decisive military edge by 2027, leading to concerns about a potential aggressive stance towards Taiwan. However, the recent assessment suggests that despite its impressive arsenal, the PLA has yet to demonstrate an ability to conduct integrated operations effectively. The absence of combat experience since 1979, when the PLA faced significant losses in a brief border conflict with Vietnam, further complicates its war readiness. Compounding these concerns is the issue of internal corruption within the PLA. Reports indicate that deep-seated graft has plagued the military, leading to significant leadership purges, including the expulsion of several high-ranking generals and the removal of defense ministers. The corruption crisis has not only disrupted military modernization efforts but has also raised serious doubts about the PLA's operational preparedness. U.S. intelligence assessments suggest that the scale of corruption has made President Xi Jinping less likely to pursue aggressive military actions in the near future. Instances of missiles filled with water instead of fuel and malfunctioning missile silos illustrate the dire ramifications of this corruption. The implications of the ongoing corruption crisis are profound. As China's economy grapples with significant challenges including slowing growth and rising domestic pressures, the PLA's role may shift even further towards maintaining internal order rather than focusing on external threats. This could lead to a decreased likelihood of military conflict, as Beijing may opt to wait for a more favorable geopolitical landscape before considering aggressive actions against Taiwan or other adversaries. In this multifaceted environment, U.S. defense planners may need to recalibrate their strategies in response to China's military capabilities. Rather than preparing for conventional warfare, the focus may need to shift towards countering China's influence in non-military domains such as economic statecraft and technology competition. The RAND report underscores that while China possesses genuine military power, its ability to translate that power into effective battlefield success remains uncertain. As the international community watches closely, the future of China's military modernization and its implications for global security remain in a precarious balance. The interplay between internal governance challenges, military corruption, and geopolitical ambitions will undoubtedly shape the trajectory of the PLA in the years to come. The question remains, can the PLA overcome its internal deficiencies and emerge as the formidable force that Beijing envisions, or will it be hindered by the very structures that it seeks to uphold? In the ever-evolving landscape of U.S.-China relations, an intricate web of perception, strategies and diplomatic maneuvers continues to shape the geopolitical narrative. Rick Waters, managing director of Eurasia Group's China practice and a former U.S. Department of State official, recently shed light on the nuances of American sentiment towards China, emphasizing that it is far from a unified consensus. As tensions simmer and competition intensifies, understanding the complexities behind U.S. policy towards China is more crucial than ever. Waters articulated that the current U.S.-China relationship is fundamentally competitive across various domains, resulting in considerable friction. He noted that initial diplomatic gestures such as President Trump's outreach to China and the unprecedented attendance of Chinese Vice President Han Zhang at Trump's inauguration might suggest a thaw in relations. However, Waters cautioned that these positive signals do not significantly alter the underlying issues of distrust and policy divergence that persist between the two nations. It is going to take a much more robust period of diplomacy and testing before we can draw firm conclusions about the trajectory of the relationship, he stated. Amidst this backdrop, the dialogue surrounding U.S. strategy toward China has intensified, particularly as the ongoing techno-security competition escalates. Waters pointed out that there are divergent views within the U.S. on whether a definitive end-state goal should be established for its China strategy. This debate gained traction following an article by Mike Gallagher, which indirectly questioned the existing framework for U.S.-China relations. Some factions within the U.S. government advocate for a more hands-off approach, believing that the United States should focus on its own performance rather than being overly concerned with China's actions. Waters described this as a prevailing view among the America First economic team, suggesting a strategy of winning without explicitly addressing China's trajectory. As the situation unfolds, the implications of U.S. policy choices are becoming increasingly significant. The second Trump administration appears poised to adopt a more confrontational stance towards China, particularly regarding issues like Taiwan and technology exports. This shift raises alarm bells for countries like South Korea, which find themselves navigating a diplomatic tightrope between maintaining relations with China while aligning with U.S. interests. Recent incidents, such as an attempted breach of the Chinese embassy in Seoul by an individual supporting the South Korean government, underscored the rising anti-China sentiment that complicates these relationships. Simultaneously, Japan's approach to China presents a juxtaposition of strategic intent and perceived threat. Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba's recent visit to the U.S. highlighted a commitment to strengthening the U.S.-Japan alliance, particularly in response to challenges posed by China. Yet Japan also expresses a desire for improved relations with China, creating a duality that raises questions about the sustainability of its foreign policy. As Waters noted, Japan must grapple with its historical alliance with the U.S. and the evolving dynamics of international relations, particularly as perceptions of China shift in the wake of global developments. Looking forward, analysts expect that the upcoming G20 foreign ministers meeting and the trilateral dialogues involving South Korea, Japan,
and China will be pivotal in shaping regional dynamics.
Both sides will likely continue to seek common ground, but the potential for conflict remains high given the entrenched positions and sensitivities surrounding issues such as Taiwan. In conclusion, as U.S.-China relations enter a critical phase characterized by intense scrutiny and strategic recalibration, the ongoing dialogues and diplomatic efforts will be essential in determining the future trajectory. The complexities of these interactions will significantly influence not only bilateral ties but also the broader geopolitical landscape as nations strive to navigate the challenges and opportunities that arise amid growing competition.
The next few months will be crucial as stakeholders assess their positions and recalibrate strategies in response to evolving realities.